Welcome to Scoop World Order. It is Friday night. It is day 2 of the draft. We're hoping DeJuan Jones and Luke Whippler hear their names called today. A lot of crazy stuff happened in last night's draft. CJ Stroud goes 2 overall. Jackson Smith-Njigba goes 20. And then our good friend Paris Johnson goes 6 over to the air. There's the Cardinals. We're going to go into all of that. And there's some huge portal action this weekend at Ohio State. Ryan Day asked for $400,000 to give to some of these kids, try to lure them in. So we're going to see how that's going. And we're going to break down a big defensive tackles film who is on campus right now. So that being said, as always, shout out where you're from. Keep putting that in the comments. I love when you guys do that. We are getting a ton of comments from all over the world. Appreciate you guys as always. Thank you guys as always. Again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for bringing the heat. Great questions. We're going to touch some NFL draft stuff, some transfer portal stuff. 3 big names from the portal are at Ohio State right now visiting. Obviously, Lorenzo Salles Jr. is coming here. That one is done. Tyler Malone looks like he's coming here. And then we have a right tackle from San Diego State. But with that being said, I'm going to bring in my good friend at Nevada. Nevada, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. I mean, busy time. You got kids portaling out of Ohio State. You got kids potentially portaling into Ohio State. You've got a great draft. And last night was a great day for Ohio State. Today's going to continue to be a great day. So lots going on in the world for sure.
Yeah, so for the NFL drafts last night, obviously CJ Stroud goes number 2. It was almost surprising they went number 2 after there was so much smoke. Most people projected to be a top 2 pick, but in the 3 days of crap leading up to it, they thought, oh, there's no way they're going to take him at number 2. And then they take him at 2, and they try to get Will Anderson at 3. What did you think about where CJ Stroud, Paris Johnson, and Jackson Smith-Njigba landed each respectively?
Well, yeah, I was one of the ones that was. I didn't think that C.J. Stroud was going to go to 2, and I think that was kind of the consensus amongst the brain trust there at Houston, and then the owner stepped in and kind of changed things at the last minute and moved them off of the direction they were going, and they ended up, kind of selling out and getting CJ, getting Will Anderson. I think that's a tough spot for CJ because there's not a lot around him, and he's going to be forced to do an awful lot and do it an awful lot quickly. So that's going to be a huge challenge for him. As for Paris, I think it's a perfect spot for him. I thought the Cardinals were one of the big winners of the draft with the way that they traded down, got a fortune, and then were able to get back up and get Paris Johnson, the guy they wanted in the first place. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba, wow, I know Geno Smith's kind of a pedestrian NFL quarterback, but with those wide receivers, with Metcalf pairing with Jackson Smith-Njigba, and can't remember who the other guy was, but he's good as well. They've got quite a wide receiving core there up in Seattle, and I think that's a great spot for him. So, yeah, good night for the Buckeyes. Stroud's got some challenges ahead of him for sure.
Yeah, I think I was hoping CJ wouldn't go to Houston. I just don't think they have the infrastructure in place. They have a first-time offensive coordinator. They have a young or a young quarterback coach. The top wide receiver is Robert Woods, who 10 years ago was great, 5 years ago was great. Now he is kind of disheveled, and he's going to wish he had Marvin and Emeka. Paris went to the perfect spot. He'll probably play right tackle for a couple of years while DJ Humphries finishes off his time in Arizona. Then he'll flop over to left tackle. They've got him under contract for 4 years plus a rookie option for a 5th year. So by then he'll probably be playing at left tackle, and by the time his extension rolls around, he'll probably getting $45 to $50 million a year. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba went to a spot where he has no pressure on him. He's in the Pacific Northwest. They've got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in front of him. Geno Smith had a fantastic year last year, 69% completion percentage as a Pro Bowl starting quarterback. And, for a guy who's got, he doesn't have a cannon of an arm, but he really knows how to feed slot guys. I think that it's a magical spot for Jackson Smith-Njigba because when they're putting out a scouting report, no one's going to look to stop him when you've got DK Metcalf out on the same field. So I think it's going to be great. I really do. But I loved where 2 of the 3 guys fell. I think CJ, I was hoping he'd go to Carolina or Indy, better offensive lines, more offensive-minded coaches. But, he falls to Houston where it's a defensive-minded head coach, which, again, I was going to look at what's around him. But, again, I grew up as a Browns fan in 99 when they took Tim Couch. And if Tim Couch would have gone to the Colts in 98 and Manning gone to the Browns in 99, I think that their stories would probably switch just because, Peyton shows up. He's got Marvin Harrison Jr. He's got Tarek Glenn, a Pro Bowl left tackle. He's got Marshall Falk at running back. And then Tim Couch shows up to the Browns, and I was at those 99 games. It's an expansion team with the worst line in NFL history. And, Kevin Johnson's your number one receiver, and Eric Red is your starting running back. It's a little dicey back there when you don't have Marshall Falk to dump the ball off to. In terms of the transfer portal, Nevada, San Diego State offensive tackle Josh Simmons is on campus right now, getting the royal treatment. Lorenzo Salles Jr. doesn't really need the royal treatment because he's already in the boat. And then we also have Tywone Malone, who is a two-sport star. Originally went to Ole Miss, wanted to try to play baseball and football, which I think is stupid, but now he's starting to wise up and want to play just defensive tackle. We're going to throw on some Tywone Malone film right now, but how are you feeling about how we're using the portal? We lost Ben Crispin to the portal. It's kind of that time of the year where guys are coming and going in and out. But what are your thoughts on how the portal activity is going, and how do you think this weekend's going to go for the Buckeyes?
Well, I think obviously, as you mentioned, Styles is in the boat. If I had to place the odds on the other two, I think it really just going to depend on the NIL presentations. I'm not quite as high on the San Diego State tackles. A lot of people are. Maybe he can help us. I'm not. That's not an obvious one to me, but if they get him, I hope he can help us. Malone, like I said, yeah, he's got to settle on. You got to play just football. And again, depth piece is that an impact guy. I don't think there's a lot of impact guys in the second portal round, so I'm kind of I won't say lukewarm, but I'll just like I said, excited about getting Styles just from a standpoint of I think he can provide depth for us down the road, and I probably view both these other pieces as depth pieces as well. And if we get them and they make an immediate impact, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, I agree. I think that a guy that was a high 4-star, low 5-star 2 years ago, I think stars fade. I think talent fades. I think that sometimes guys, he went to Ole Miss, barely played, had like 10 tackles last year, which, it's whatever. But I mean, you got to see how's the guy's conditioning now. How big of an attitude does he have? Like, will he upset the room if he shows up? And the hardest part in Nevada, honestly, is that a lot of these kids, when they come and they visit, they want to be guaranteed a starting spot. And we're not going to do that. And it costs us a lot because a lot of times these guys, they want to come to Ohio State. They see all the good stuff about Ohio State, but they want a guaranteed starting spot. And it doesn't happen with any of those three guys between Josh Simmons, the right tackle from San Diego State, Tywone Malone, and obviously Lorenzo Salles Jr. You wouldn't. None of them are good enough to guarantee a starting spot. In my opinion, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I think that's going to be that's going to be a challenge, and portal guys are looking for a lot, but obviously, Ryan Day is looking for a little bit of money this weekend, as you mentioned. The $400,000 they're looking to kind of cobble together for the NAL collectives to make a run at these guys. Obviously, they feel like they're pieces that can help. It's funny to think that a $200,000 guy is like a lot. What would you have done for $200,000 during your college career? You probably would have asked who they wanted you to kill or something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's some members of the program I'd push if I would train for $1 right now, but I mean, I would have done it for, again, like 200 grand for. I mean, that covers your mom's travel to every game. It covers your, your diet, your expenses. I mean, it goes a long way, especially if you're a 1 or 2 year guy. I mean, but that's what these kids are demanding. They want 100 grand, 200 grand. I was on the phone today with a kid that wants 500 grand. Yeah, there's a school. He's an Ohio State kid, and a school wants at least would give him at least 500 grand to transfer there right now, like to leave Ohio State. And I was just like, I don't think you should do it just because you're a legacy and you get a lot of good stuff going on, and it seems like a lot of money now, but again, this is just what is it going to be like when you go to the league in a year or 2 or 3, and I don't know, like I don't want to chase fast money, but. For some kids, I mean, there might not be an end of the road. Like, that's the thing that's always amazing about the NFL. So the guys that were really good college players didn't have that marquee NFL career. What would they have, like the Troy Smiths, the JT Barretts, the Cardell Jones, the guys that didn't have the massive NFL careers? Like, how much money would they have made? Especially when they're on a tidal wave of like a national championship, or Troy Smith after beating Notre Dame in '05. Like, I mean, there were some times where these guys would have really struck while the iron was hot and made some pretty good bank. But Yeah, it's just always one of those things I think about. But yeah, I think Tyler Malone. Like I think that defensive tackle. If we get out another depth piece, because the beauty of playing like defensive tackles that you rotate through. So if this kid wants to come play 15, 20 snaps a game for Ohio State, take him in a heartbeat. I don't like naming someone a starter as like a defensive tackle isn't really that big of a deal because they rotate so much. Offensive line's a huge deal because you only play one guy, but I don't know. I like this kid's tape. I liked where it was coming out. I thought it was, some kids that try to play both sports in college, I think it's completely foolish. I think it's just too hard to do. But I think this kid's kind of learned from his lesson that he's not going to be a Major League Baseball player and he needs to go to try to be an NFL football player. So why not come here when we've got, some really good defensive linemen, a really good D line coach, and the most important part about like if you really don't have fun being a defensive lineman is go somewhere where the offense scores like a zillion points like we do right now, and you play in the Big Ten because you're going to be rushing the passer a lot. So you're going to be up 49-0 at halftime against some of these teams, and they got to throw it. So if you're a D lineman, you like to rush the passer, go to Ohio State. Go somewhere that's got a high flying offense. It's just kind of a tried and true formula. And I think that this is a kid that could learn from his mistake of going to Ole Miss. Nevada, in terms of the draft, we've got a couple guys that could go tonight. DeJuan Jones could go tonight. Luke Whippler could go tonight. Zach Harrison could go tonight. Nicest rounds 2 and 3. Isaiah Foskey actually just went to New Orleans, who's a Notre Dame guy who we played against last year. Your thoughts on some of the guys that are left to go tonight? Because this is going to be a quick show tonight. I know you got to get out of here, but yeah, I mean, Levis went at 33 to the Titans. Joey Porter Jr. went to the Steelers. But your thoughts on who could be going tonight?
Yeah, I think Dewan's the most likely guy to go, and I think that could happen at any time. I think he's one of those. At this point, it's a good value in a draft that's not really particularly deep on offensive line. I think those he's a good value pick for somebody, and I expect his name to be called. Now, if I'm not mistaken, won't that make like 7 OSU offensive linemen taken in like the last 3 NFL drafts? With 3 this
Uh,
year, and
Let me add them up. So Josh Myers, Wyatt. Then we have Nick Petit there. And then this year we'd have, yeah, that'd be 7. And we'd have those 3. We'd have the 2 tackles and Luke Whippler. So, yeah, I mean,
7 in 3 years.
that's record breaking. I mean, there's never been anything like that ever. So yeah, I mean,
How many guys? How many guys were drafted off of your lines?
shoot, that I started on. Well, in '05, Mangold went first round. Rob Sims went third round. '06, Dadish got drafted like 6th round. Then in '07, I went 7th round. '08, we had nobody because Booney should have got drafted, but he got arrested and screwed his whole thing up, and he had a bunch of character stuff. So um yeah, I mean, we didn't have any in '08, any '09. In 10, we didn't have any. 11, Mike Adams went 2nd round. JB Shugarts and Brewster did not get drafted. They're in that class. So yeah, that would have been the 12 draft. 13 draft, Reed Fraggle went 7th round, I believe. And then that next year, I think Mewhort went 2nd round. Norwell went undrafted. And Lindsley went like 5th or 6th round. So yeah, I mean, I've never seen anything like how prolific we've been in the NFL draft at Ohio State right now. So, I mean, like I said, Paris Johnson going 6 overall as a 3 and out junior, the highest offensive line draft pick since Orlando Pace. I mean, it's sensational. So again, kudos to Stud and to Justin Fry, but mostly Stud. I mean, Stud's the guy that coached these guys for Paris. He knew him for 3 years, then he coached him for 2 years, then he got whacked for the last year. But you just gotta look at the totality of it. And I think Paris is a guy that's pretty easy to coach. So, if my German Shepherd would have played, or if he would have been the O-line coach last year, he probably could have got him into the 1st round because he's just that physically gifted and that talented. But, that's not taking anything away from Justin. But, I mean, Paris is one of those once in a lifetime, top of your resume type players. It's like coaching Orlando Pace. Like, you're never going to get another Orlando Pace if you coach at Ohio State. So you might as well put him at the top of your resume. So we have a super chat.
No, hold on. Now, what did you think of the comments last night about how Paris Johnson got steamrolled against Georgia? Did you share that sentiment that he got steamrolled?
No, I mean he gave up a sack and that was it. I mean we scored like 45 points against them. Like I don't know how you could get steamrolled when if our kicker, if we don't screw up the last three plays of the game where we had the ball with two timeouts and we ran a short side run, they got nothing, and then we had two awful pass attempts that got nothing. Like we had in three plays, if we could have gotten 8 yards, if you just run mixed Rossi fullback dive, you're probably getting 1-2 yards a pop. So you can probably get 6, 7, 8 yards on that. Then we win the national title. But for whatever reason, like our play calling was atrocious at the end of the Georgia game, and it hung our guys up dry. I mean, the third play, Georgia wasn't even set at the line of scrimmage, which was crazy to me, and we just screwed it up. I mean, you could have ran about anything because they didn't even have a defensive play called, and they went running to the line, and I was like, what are we doing? But I don't know. I thought that our coaches failed our guys in a big way at the national championship game, and our guys should have won a ring. I mean, I'm just lying because that Georgia team was very beatable. I felt like me and you, we had a pretty good read. We picked Ohio State to win the game. We kind of knew how the whole game would go, and I just thought that we had an overwhelming talent advantage versus Georgia. I mean, we had the number 2 pick overall at quarterback. We had Paris 6 overall, so we had a higher drafted left tackle, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Obviously, Marvin Harrison lasted for a while until he got hurt, but you still have Emeka, you still have Cade Stover got dinged up, but so did their tight end. So even with all of the attrition, we still had better players than they did. Which is hard, because everyone's like, oh my God, Georgia's so good, and Georgia's fantastic, but they were nowhere near as good as they were in 2021 when they had probably the best defense in college football history. I mean, literally. I mean, you look at where those guys got drafted. Those guys all were. Their entire front seven was first round picks, except for Nakobe Dean, who won the butt kiss, and because he's a little short guy. I don't know. I thought that I don't think Paris got worked by Georgia at all because we scored like 50 points against them, and you don't do that when your left tackles unless your left tackle's dominating. The guy that got worked on the last play was DeWand. We had a chance to do something. DeWand got put down by Jalen Carter. So that's just facts. I mean, that's just what the film backs up. And I don't know. It's just hard, man, because when you have teams like that and you don't cash in those ships, man, it is real, real tough. It's real tough. So this is my opinion, and my opinion is usually right. So we have a super chat real quick. I want to get into this. D. Sonny, Braxton would not have gotten injured. What do you think he could have done in the NFL? Nevada, what are your thoughts on Braxton if he had not gotten injured?
Wow. You mean as an NFL quarterback?
Yeah.
At that time, I don't know. I just think guys like that, they just weren't. Nobody was giving those guys a chance to really play quarterback at that point in time, and
Yeah.
given the fact as fragile as he was, I think his best position really was at wide receiver. Had he not been injured, maybe he would have been a little bit more durable. Come NFL time, but I think the position change ultimately was definitely in his best interest because he wasn't going to be an NFL quarterback. He just wasn't built to handle the rigors of playing in the NFL. And back then they had heck, they gave up on Terrell Pryor as a quarterback because he's not a traditional guy. I mean, nowadays, Ben, people be lining up to draft a kid like that, with that size and that speed. I mean, look at Richardson who went last night. Incredibly inaccurate, kind of wonky thing, but he can run. And so, the top pick in the NFL draft as a quarterback. The NFL's changed a lot in the last 10 years. So so I think Braxton ended up at the right spot.
I do too. I don't think Braxton was. Um, I think he had decent arm talent, but man, like for him to scan the field and not tuck the ball and run is tough. I think that, I mean, could he have been? I mean, Bryce Young was a much better thrower than him, but I mean, Braxton's a better athlete. I don't know. I mean, Braxton, if you didn't have his athleticism, he's just a guy, but his athleticism was so superior to everybody else on the field that it carried us for basically 2 years on offense. He was just so good. Nevada, how much time do you have? It is 8:01. The draft is rolling along. There's been no DeJuan Jones pick yet. Do you have 5 minutes? So I was going to roll through a couple film clips real quick.
Yeah, I've got 5 minutes. I've got a kid running in a huge track meet tonight, so I've got to go be a dutiful parent and cheer him on.
That a boy. All right, so this is the last three plays of the Georgia game. We're going to get into this, and we're going to get out of here and go watch the draft with you guys. This is the play where I said, you got to run the jet sweep with Emeka Egbuka here. They put him in motion. They're in zero. Again, nobody really goes with him. Like traditional zero, he'd be manned up here. He'd go across the formation. You hand him the ball, hand Emeka the ball in the jet right here. Hand him the ball, get a block here, and you win a national championship. But instead, we run short side zone into a cross dog. Great call by Georgia. We get pushed into the backfield. Again, I don't know why we're in 2 points. So we get jammed up right here. Again, if you got to get 10 yards on 3 plays, get in a 3-point, put your hand on the ground, get in a 3-point, get in a 3-point, get in a 3-point. But again, if you watch the jet sweep to Emeka, it's like stealing. It's a 15-yard run if you just hand it to him right here. Snap the ball, do the touch pass like Geno Smith did to Tavon Austin. But instead, we're high, we're late. You know, Matt Jones is late off the ball, and our guys get knocked back, and we get nothing. So again, there's 3 plays. If you get 10 yards, you win the national championship. But instead, you call your first timeout. 17 seconds left. You've got 1 timeout remaining. You can't see the little thing right there. You have 1 timeout left. So here you go to throw the ball. And again, the only guy I'm throwing to in this situation is Emeka, but we don't throw it to Emeka. I think this one goes to X. Yeah, we run a clear out for Xavier Johnson. Again, I don't know why we're throwing it to Xavier Johnson. I think Xavier's a great kid, awesome kid, but the only guy that needs to get the ball here is Emeka. Best player on the field at this point after Marvin's gone. They run the same blitz basically from action. Little cross dog, and again, our protection's fine here. Again, CJ gets rid of it right before he gets killed, but they're bringing an extra guy late from depth. So, again, Emeka needs to get the ball. You don't need to be throwing it with Xavier. He's the inside guy, so you think he's the number 1 option, but he's running deep here. And again, the protection isn't perfect, but it is Georgia, so you got to do the best you can to pick all their mess up. So that's a good call here. And then this is the one that kills me. Is that, we're lined up here and Georgia doesn't have a call. We're going hurry up here. We're going quick to the line. Georgia doesn't have a call. So these guys are kind of muddled up. We're lined up and CJ decides to go with it. And you can see their defensive end when we snap the ball is everyone's standing up. Nobody's lined up correctly. And we don't make them pay, which kills me. And we put, you should never put Joe Royer, your tight end, versus a Georgia defensive end because he's going to lose that matchup every time. So I hated this call. DeJuan's not ready to go. Jalen Carter puts him in the dirt right here, which isn't good. So CJ, despite them not having a call, has to scramble around. Despite us having 7 blockers and them having 4 rushers, we can't handle it. Because again, you should never put 84, who's a great kid and a great player. Don't put him on a defensive end from Georgia because he's not going to be able to block him. So these guys end up bringing 4, 5, and we've got 7 blockers. So we've got the 5 linemen, tight end, and we've got Mitch Rossi back here. We have 7 blockers for 5 guys, and we face immediate pressure because the call is terrible. So, again, and DeJuan, as much as people want to dog Jalen Carter, when it counted, he puts DeJuan right in the dirt. Literally, this is the guy that everybody said is lazy and was sucking wind against us. But on the last play of the game, when we needed it and they needed it, he puts DeJuan in the dirt. And he puts pressure on the quarterback and forces CJ out of the pocket. So, again, that's the difference between winning a national championship and not winning a national championship are those plays. And again, I'm not trying to bring up a sore subject, but it's. Those last 3 plays were just horrific by Ryan Day and the play callers. And, again, you don't get those kinds of chances with, a top 2 quarterback and 2 All-American tackles and that type of thing. So, as much as people want to dog the offensive line out and, the O-line can't do anything, I'm like, we had 500 yards and 45 points. But, the last 3 plays, the calls were just awful and they don't really give the offensive line a chance. So, that's my little soapbox moment for today, but I was proud of those guys. I thought those guys played great. I thought that when Nevada and I were leading into the Georgia game, we talked about how we liked the matchup with the offensive line versus Georgia's D-line because, again, you don't get 2 All-American tackles and, an All-American level center and Donnie Jackson's first team All Big Ten at left guard. Matt Jones is a really good second team All Big Ten right guard. Like, you got to cash those chips in, man. Any thoughts on that, Nevada, as I get off my soapbox about how close they were to winning a national championship last year?
Yeah, I think and I say this totally lovingly. I think it's easy to call plays when you know what happened and where the defense is going to go. Um, yes, any of the play calls that you made would have been better, but had they popped and worked, they'd been brilliant. I don't think it was Dave's best work coming down the stretch for sure, but I'm not quite as down. And I'm no Ryan Day apologist for sure, but I didn't think they were quite as bad as you did. But again, you're the All-American, the guy with the tree in the grove, so I think your opinion counts about 10x what my dumb opinion is. But that's just the way I'm seeing it.
No, and again, I'm not trying to be like too hard on it, but it's just like, when you've got a Emeka Egbuka on the field and you look around and the rest of the offense is Mitch Rossi at running back and, Joe Royer, because Cade Stover's knocked out of the game, Trey Henderson's not playing, Marvin's knocked out of the game. Your weaponry is so thinned down that I think you just have to figure out a way to get Emeka the ball 3 straight times. And again, it's because I think Emeka is one of the top 5 players in the country returning next year, including Marvin, probably number 1, and the quarterback from USC being number 1 or 2. Emeka's like a top 5-ish type player, and you just have to figure out how to put the ball in his hands. Like, I think that, when you've got a guy who's dynamic, especially a guy that can run and, you could hand him the ball and he's just as prolific as he is if he runs a route, because he has that skill set where he's like a Robert Woods. If Robert Woods in his prime, they'd hand him the ball in a jet sweep. He'd go get 7, 8, 9 yards or take it to the crib. And that's the kind of guy he is. I mean, he's not as explosive as Percy Harvin, but he's got the same skill set as Percy Harvin. And that's the kind of thing where, you got to get him some touches on jet sweeps, man. I mean, I'm telling you, not every receiver is built to carry a jet sweep, but Emeka is for sure. He can put his foot in the ground and get upfield. And that's why I was like, oh my God, they put him in motion. Nobody went with him. And there's just nobody home. And that's something that honestly, like, if you have good people upstairs in the booth, they have to identify that when you go in motion. How do they react to it? Is it man coverage? Is it zone coverage? Is it zero where they carry the guy across the formation or they don't? I mean, that's just good, because this wasn't like this was the first quarter. They didn't know what kind of defense they're going to be in or how they'd react to motion. This is literally the last 3 plays of the game, so you have a pretty good handle on exactly how teams are going to react to what you do on offense. So again, it's easy to sit and armchair quarterback this thing, but if you got a national championship on the line, and you've got a Mecca on the field, and you've got a bunch of an Xavier and a Mitch Rossi and guys that aren't your A-list guys, you got to feed the A-list guys. Period. End. So we'll wrap this thing. Nevada, any predictions? I want to check one last time. Michael Mayer went to the Las Vegas Raiders, excuse me. So he's off the board. No DeWand yet. Any predictions on DeWand? Your beloved Packers took Luke Musgrave from Oregon State, so I'm sure you're just excited as can be about that.
And then they just traded the pick to the Lions, which is weird. But no, DeWan's going to go anytime. Keep an eye on it and keep looking on it for portal commitments this weekend as well. Stay tuned.
Yeah, get on BuckeyeScoop.com because the portal is a hopping right now. So we're going to wrap this show. Appreciate you guys. A little more abbreviated tonight. Want to break some film down. Want to get you guys some of the goods. But again, the draft is cranking along. We have a huge thread on BuckeyeScoop.com. It's fantastic. So in the comments, shout out where you're from, guys. I'm telling you, it's awesome. I love seeing where you guys are watching from. As always, if you enjoyed the show, leave us a like, click subscribe, and click the little alert bell so you guys never miss another live show again. Again, we appreciate you guys so much. We love doing this with you guys. You guys bring great questions. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for subscribing to BuckeyeScoop.com. Thank you for subscribing to this YouTube channel. We've had a fantastic week. We're going to do a big draft recap either late tonight or tomorrow, so it depends on how everything goes. So we appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I will see you guys on BuckeyeScoop.com for our NFL Draft Day, which is on fire right now. We will talk to you guys soon. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.